good crowd in Baltimore, great ballpark. It's good for the sport. And the Orioles have some life. That's the most important thing.
Into left field. Marsh will not get there. They've done it again. That is absolutely walloped to right field. And that's all, folks. Into left field from Mullins. That is going to get past Duggars. You having fun yet?
I'm having fun. I've been having fun for a while now.
For our financial case study, our group dove into the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles are owned by Peter Angelos, who is 93 and pictured on the right there. It is run by his son, John Angelos, as he is the president. The general manager of the Orioles is Mike Elias. The Baltimore Orioles are currently valued at $1.7 billion, and Peter Angelos bought the Orioles for $173 million in 1993. The Orioles are a part of Major League Baseball, and they are in the American League East. They were not an expansion team, as they were moved from St. Louis to Baltimore in 1954, and Major League Baseball operates as a distributed club ownership model. With the Baltimore Orioles, they're a partnership organization with the Angelos family owning the majority at roughly 70%. Outside of the Angelos family, 14 other people and groups combined to own the remaining 30%. Major League Baseball is exempt from the Sherman Antitrust Act, which allows them to have monopolistic tendencies such as free agency, writing contracts to not allow competing leagues to exist, and not allowing stadiums to be used for competing leagues. Over time, they have taken steps to ensure that they're the only professional baseball league, as they have been granted exemption for an insanely long time. An example of this would be the XFL is allowed to use NFL stadiums even though they were a competing league, but baseball and the Major League Baseball or league as a whole do not allow other leagues to pop up. The commissioner of Major League Baseball is Rob Manfred, and he was elected by the owners on January 25th, 2015. When he was elected, he stated that he wanted to change youth outreach, embracing technology, quickening the pace of play, strengthening player relations, and creating a more unified business operations. He's followed through on many of these things, specifically the technology and pace of play with the pitch clock. And he reports to the owners and works to make decisions that are in the best interest of the league. In 1993, former owner Eli Jacobs was put into involuntary bankruptcy by banks, and that is him on the right there. These banks and those of influence pushed him to sell the team, and it ended up being purchased by the current owner, Peter Angelos, for $173 million, and Angelos paid $33 million more than what the franchise was valued at.
The MLB draft is a 20-round draft where teams select players into their organization. Eligible players are high school graduates who have not yet entered college or 21-year-old college athletes. The draft order is based on previous year's standings based on a reverse order of winning percentage. The first 6 picks are also decided by a lottery where teams' odds are based on winning percentage. The first 10 rounds of the draft have an assigned value of what organizations can pay the prospects, and if they exceed this number, they are penalized with taxes.
Share at Masson, but the Orioles are the majority shareholder due to the Nationals' rights being bought later in 2006. Both franchises receive the same amount in TV rights fees, but the Orioles receive a much larger share of the overall income of Masson. In recent controversy, the Nats and Masson have argued over the correct value of their TV rights for several years. Masson believes that they are worth around $40 million a year, and the Nats thought upwards of $118 million a year. This was initially settled in 2014 by then Commissioner Bud Selig, who determined the Nats to be worth about $59.6 million a year. Now, all the money that the Orioles bring in with their deal with Masson does not all go to the Orioles. The MLB has implemented a revenue sharing plan that distributes a portion of each club's yearly net revenue equally among all clubs. So, for example, for the 2023 season, the Orioles would have 50% taken from their 2022 season, 25% taken from both their 2021 and 2020 season. The amount that each club receives from the pool varies depending on their market size and just yearly net revenue. The MLB also recently signed a new collective bargaining agreement that was put into play April 7th, 2022. Some positive takeaways from this new CBA are the increase in minimum salaries for all players at all levels, a $50 million pool for arbitration eligible players, expanded playoffs, NIL rights for minor league players, and the universal DH, which might be loved by some teams, but I feel like some fans might enjoy getting to watch a pitcher hit here and there. On the other hand, players are now required to serve 6 years before entering a free agency, which could limit a player being able to test the waters and see how much money that they're really worth. The expanded playoffs could cause teams to spend less if they know that they can already make the playoffs with the amount of money that they're spending. And the overall numbers of players that an organization can have at all levels was lowered from 180 to 165. The MLB is the only of the 4 major professional sports leagues to not have a salary cap. Instead, they have implemented a competitive balance tax, which is basically a soft salary cap. The threshold begins at $233 million and increases by $20 million to reach the max of $293 million. Each threshold has varying tax percentages that correspond with how many times a team has gone over that threshold, and the amount of money that is spent over that threshold is taxed per dollar by the corresponding tax percentage.
The Orioles' payroll currently stands at $87.7 million, which is only ahead of the Oakland Athletics. This gives them the freedom to spend money in upcoming free agencies and retain the contracts of their young stars. Through the draft, the Orioles have focused mainly on college players and have had a lot of success as they led the MLB prior to the start of the season in top 100 prospects with 8. As the 4th youngest team in baseball with the 2nd lowest payroll, the Baltimore Orioles continue to defy expectations. They currently sit at 2nd in a loaded AL East division, and their young prospects bring great excitement to future possibilities.
Camden Yards was built in 1992. The total cost of construction was $110 million, financed through government bonds. The most recent renovation of Camden Yards was before the start of the 2022 season when they moved the outfield wall back. This was a good renovation, however, it removed 100 seats from the left field seating area. A potential renovation option that the Orioles could look into is cleaning up the areas that surround the ballpark. The Orioles continue to pay for Camden Yards through a series of rent and bond payments of $15 million a year. They also pay the Baltimore Stadium Authority a percentage of ticket sales, advertising revenue, and other game day revenue streams. The land around Camden, as well as the cost of construction, was more expensive than they anticipated. For financing techniques, because it is publicly funded, the Maryland General Assembly recently invested $1.2 billion for Oriole Park and M&T Bank Stadium to split equally. Camden Yards was able to gain more in return, making it out to be pretty successful. Lastly, the Orioles are also looking to develop Camden Yards into a multi-purpose facility that will attract tourists and businesses to the area of downtown Baltimore. In terms of revenue, the Orioles generate revenue in many ways. Their primary source of revenue are ticket sales, sponsorship deals, and television broadcasting rights. The Orioles have also recently switched concession vendors from Delaware North, who they have been working with since 2010, to Levy Restaurants. The Orioles are also sponsored by many companies, including Fanatics, Pepsi, MedStar Health, and many others. Most of the advertising done in the stadiums is through signs on the field, their uniforms, and the television. The franchise is currently looking for a new naming rights deal for the next 10 years. The current price ranges from $6 to $8 million.
The future is promising as the Orioles feature the #1 farm system and have 2 young stars in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson. They also have had a very low payroll the last couple of years, which will make profits greater as the prospects on rookie deals come up. The Orioles will be able to make some big free agent purchases because of this low payroll. Challenges. The Orioles play in the most competitive division currently, with teams coming from large markets, whereas the Orioles are not. Another challenge is who takes ownership of the team when Peter Angelos passes. There's been talk in the family, talk about moving the team, and it could be a legal battle for who takes ownership. That is our case study. Thank you for listening.